Hello, everybody. My name is Ben Koper, and I've spent about half my career in business development and marketing working from home. Millions of people have been suddenly thrust into the world of working from home and video conferencing and are trying to figure out the expectations and new norms with professionalism, etiquette, collaborating with your coworkers in a digital space, and all sorts of new adjustments to life. For many of us, we don't actually know how long this work from home might last, when quarantine and stay-at-home orders might be lifted. And you'll see in the news, a lot of companies are issuing press talking about learning about the benefits they're learning from some or all of their staff working from home. And many of these places might keep these practices going into the future, even when these stay-at-home and quarantine orders are lifted. Being that we don't know how long this new professional virtual space might be happening, I figured I could learn some of my tips and tricks I've come to adapt over the 5 years that I've been working remotely and see what else new that I can add to the conversation to help people ease into this new work style and hopefully, maybe, excel at it. Now, the version that I'm going to be portraying in this video, I'll call the business casual approach, the sort of baseline where you can start with working remotely, working from home, and video conferencing with your colleagues. Depending on your work culture and the software that you use, it could be a lot more professional and a lot more strict, or it could be a lot more casual, laid back, and less structured. There are going to be parts of this video that you're going to see and go, that's impossible, that's ridiculous, because of whatever your living situation is like at home or how your company functions. And you might want to stop this video. Don't. Just skip over that part. There's going to be a lot more after it that maybe you will enjoy. This is sort of the baseline, generic, for everybody, beginner's tips. So let's jump into it. I've spent about the last 5 years working remotely, mostly from my home, and when I'm in my hometown, working from libraries and coffee shops, anywhere with a strong Wi-Fi connection, and then occasionally traveling across the country to my company's home office. In that time, there are 3, I think, critical lessons before we even get into video conferencing that I think are important to help you keep focused, motivated, and delivering high-quality work that your company is used to. The first tip I want to go into is setting. Think of a play or a TV show. The setting really sets the mood and the mentality for what's going to happen in that space. And so it is with working at home. Your setting that you want to set up your workspace in should be professional, focused, help you keep in the game and keep you working. So think how warm and comfy and cozy your bed is and is often the place where you drift off to sleep. Working in your bed creates a lot of problems and is not a very professional place to work. Same thing goes for your couch. Your couch might be where you watch television, hang out with your family or friends. It's more of a casual, relaxed area and may not put you in the right mentality for the workday. So you may be scrambling to create a professional workspace at home. Ideally, a dedicated office space with a door is the best scenario, but not all of us might have that kind of space in our homes or apartments. So you might need to dedicate a corner of your home where you can set up a nice, comfortable table, a good chair where you can add a desk, be able to plug in for power, and work as normally as you can. Wherever you choose to set up that space, if it's not in a dedicated office space, try to keep yourself away from distractions that you might be tempted for. Whether it's video entertainment, television, video games, you're too close to the kitchen to keep going in for snacks and drinks and all sorts of stuff, or if you're by a really exciting, busy, big window with lots to look at all the time and not pay attention to your work, those might not put you in the right mentality. I found if you don't have a dedicated office space in your home, the dining room table is an interesting area to set up. If it's not a highly trafficked area in your house or apartment, a dining room has a set of etiquette and behaviors and mindsets that go into a house anyway, something that's a bit more formal, structured, and organized when people gather in that space. And that might help you set up with that sort of mentality as well. Also, usually a dining room table is at a nice height where you can work, similar to a desk in an office. So the next tip is how you dress. If you're just starting to work from home, the temptation is to stay in sweatpants or a robe all day and be really relaxed and really casual. Just like your physical space influences your mentality when it comes to work, so is your dress. But if your dress is too relaxed and too casual, that's where your mind is going to go, and you won't be delivering your best work and service online with your coworkers. Now, you don't need to dress so formal as if you were about to go into a meeting with senior leadership in your company, but you do want to dress in a way that expresses, I'm here and I'm ready to get to work, and not, I'll get to eventually. Now, this is a big part of where company culture comes in. If your office wasn't a physical space before all this started, you want to dress that reflects how you were dressed in the office. Sometimes you can be a little more casual, but again, you need to follow sort of the company culture that's evolving. I think one of the interesting observations here in trying to dress like you did in the office is that this is the early days of working from home for a lot of people. And we're all mentally transitioning from the person we knew in a physical office to now the colleagues that we're working with through video chat and MS Teams and online. So appearing like you physically did when you were in the office, at least in this short term, this immediate time, helps bridge a mental gap and a visual gap for your colleagues of who you were there and who you are now, that it's still the same person and the same sort of delivery and professionalism or lack thereof, wherever you might be. Your normal hygiene is really important too. Again, in these early days, we're trying to bridge the person that your colleagues knew in the physical office to this digital environment. And so you want to still try to appear like you did in the office. We don't know how long this is going to last and what our online avatars are going to evolve to be. But for now, try and maintain what you had in the office. If you're trying to go for a Movember look of not taking care of your facial hair or growing your hair out, you're going to look like Gandalf before long and people aren't going to recognize you. And it's going to be a different persona than they were familiar with. So if you've never done before, go to YouTube, watch some videos on how to cut your own hair, how to have one of your roommates or a family member cut your hair, how to take care of your beard, mustache, facial hair, whatever have you. Makeup is different when you're getting ready for video conferencing. It just appears different than it does in person, so you can watch some video tutorials on that. But still try and keep yourself presentable and professional for video chats. The last set of tips I have to do with setting boundaries when working from home. And there are 3 areas for that. 1 is setting boundaries for yourself. 1 is setting boundaries for anybody that you live with. And 3rd is setting boundaries between your social life and your professional life. When you start working from home, then temptations to be distracted are huge. There's laundry to be done, there's dishes, there's yard work, there's pets, there's other people you're living with, there's entertainment. There's a lot of things that have the potential to pull you away. That inclination to be distracted when you're home from work is completely natural. You can go Google 1,000 articles on your own, but even when we're in a physical office space, there are so many studies that, I'll say just as an example, Conscious Company recently said in last fall that the average office worker is actually productive for less than 3 hours a day. Although a lot of us are in a physical office space for more than 8 hours a day. So once you're at home, those temptations for being distracted, where at the office it was water cooler chat or watching a fun YouTube video a colleague sent you, or redundant, unnecessary meetings, going to and from lunches that stretch a little bit longer than they should have, all those things, they're tenfold at home. And so you have to fight that urge. So you've got to feel out your own office culture, but I'm saying it's all right to take little 10-minute breaks here and there throughout the day to do some of those things. It's sort of like dieting. If you say no candy ever, you're going to snap one day and eat an entire cabinet of candy. Usually in dieting, they say you find ways to substitute or treat a little bit here and there that won't crash your diet, but keep you sane. It's the same thing with these distractions at home. Taking a 10-minute break here to do the dishes and then go back to work. And then taking a 10-minute break to work on the laundry and then come back to the computer. Help you ease that gap and that pressure throughout the day so you don't completely lose your mind. Remember, this is in parallel to the sort of time that you weren't working when you were physically in the office. So it's okay to make that kind of break when you're at home. Again, in moderation. You should be working. The second place is to set expectations with everyone else in your house or your apartment. Now you have to remember, most likely they have the same rights to all the space in your house that you do. So you can't set a blanket rule that changes everyone else in your entire house. But during working hours, it makes sense to have a discussion beforehand with your roommates or your family or your partner, where your workspace is, how focused and lasered in can you be, can you answer questions over your shoulder or have side conversations, and especially if you're going to be on a video chat or a phone call with your team, someone outside of your company, your senior leadership, especially in those more high stakes circumstances, it might help to put a sign on the door that says like, do not disturb between these hours or these times. Make sure to take that sign down when you're done. But just setting expectations and talking with your cohabitators beforehand can help reduce any sort of friction and problems going forward. And lastly is social. It is the workday. You should be working in the day. Just like you did in the office, sometimes you had to take calls with doctors or emergency calls from family, and that's completely fine. But remember, this is your workday, and you can catch up with friends like you used to when it's over. A lot of us are doing virtual happy hours these days, so you can look forward to that at the end of the workday. But set boundaries for yourself so you don't blur the lines too much and confuse and stress yourself out when you're not able to give dedicated time to those different assets of your life that you owe time to. So now that we have the 3 general tips of just staying sane while working from home out of the way, let's get into video conferencing, what we're doing a lot more of. You can call it video conferencing, video chat, webinars, whatever have you. I've done more of them in the last month than I have in my entire career. And as professionals transition from traditional face-to-face work and meetings in the office to this sort of virtual world of meeting and talking and getting business done, we're learning all these new etiquettes and behaviors and software and how it all works. So it's a learning curve, but hopefully this video is helping you potentially Get ahead of that curve. This video chat may trail off after the novelty of it is worn off and we may not want to do it anymore. It may stay just as it is right now, or it may get enhanced when we're all wearing VR goggles and meeting in Second Life for meetings. We just don't know, but this is where we are today. There are so many platforms right now to virtually chat with your friends and your colleagues, and there's more coming out every day. There's Zoom, there's MS Teams, you've got House Party, you've got FaceTime if you have an iPhone, you've got Google Hangouts, WhatsApp has a video chat, GoToMeeting. Follow your leadership or your IT team at your company on which platform you should be using for work and use that. And I highly recommend not introducing brand new platforms without talking to your team first, and especially on short notice. Sending a meeting invite to your team from GoToMeeting for the same day that afternoon when they've never used it before is just kind of a mean move, so don't do that. Each of those platforms that I just listed off could have their own YouTube tutorial on how to use them, and there are people from those companies who have created tutorials online. There's tutorials that pop up when you launch the software, so this is not going to be a technical tutorial. The overarching important message is learn how to use that platform before your first professional meeting on it. I have been on so many calls over the years that in the first 15 minutes, we waste so much time because people don't know how to get into the room. They're stuck in a lobby. They lost the login information. They don't know how to turn their camera on. They've muted it and they don't know how to unmute it. And you just waste a lot of really important time where everyone's taking time out of their workday to come together for this meeting, and people on the call just haven't been able to figure the technology out. So learn it beforehand. A great way to do that is once you know what platform you're going to be on, if you haven't used it before, set up a call with a colleague, someone who's more parallel to you, or with a friend or a family member on that platform, and just play around with it. Take the time then to play with the platform. Click all the buttons, click the little triple dots in the hamburger menus, click all the buttons that would scare you on a professional call, like, I don't know what this does, let's see what happens. And maybe you hang up and then you have to call back. But take that time to learn it so that when you're on the call, A, you show how competent you are with the platform, which is important for your entire professional brand, and B, you get that urge, that playful curiosity urge out of the system before the professional call when you've already messed with all the things and done your filters and backgrounds. Now, there's a potential that your computer that you're using at home might not have a camera integrated into it or even a microphone. That's okay, that's normal. You can go on any kind of online website and there are lots of affordable cameras and microphones that attach either by your audio jacks or through USB jacks in your computer that are great and can get you up and running real fast. And they'll come with their own instruction booklets that'll tell you how to use them. But that can get you the audio and the video that you need for all the platforms that I just listed off again. All have the same general kind of features of turning your microphone on and off, turning your video on and off, flipping that camera if you're on a tablet, a chat window, kind of like old AOL Instant Messenger where you could type and chat with each other, virtual backgrounds that you can play with, setting a headshot that is in place of your thumbnail preview if you're not actually turning your camera on, sharing your screen, and of course, ending your call. I'm going to talk into more how to use some of these things in a minute. That's not so technical. But just make sure to watch the tutorial on your software that you're going to be using beforehand so that you know how to use it and that you're competent. Again, if your computer doesn't have the camera or the microphone hardware that you need to do video conferencing at home, most of these software platforms have a smartphone app version of it that work surprisingly well. So you can also download those on your smartphone and pop in some headphones and get to work. So now we've talked about video conferencing hardware, let's talk about your setting for when you're going to turn your webcam on. This is a lot like the mentality around your setting for just general professional working from home. Now, since people are looking at you, you need to think about your background, what's behind you, not what's in front of you, and keeping you focused and engaged on your work. In this new virtual business world, this rectangle around you now defines you, and people will be looking at you in this space for an hour or more when you have a call. We are creatures of pattern. We like things organized, and we like things to make sense. So when you're on a video call with someone, they are going to be looking in your background all around it, trying to make sense of the space around you, how it reflects you, what things are, what things mean, why things are set that way. We love reality TV. We love critiquing what home makeover shows look like and gardening shows look like. And people are doing that when you're on video. So you need to think consciously about what's behind you and how that presents you as a professional. Our tendency is that we really want to show off what parts of our personality we're really proud of, or because there's a lot of psychology around this working from home, trying to emphasize parts of our personality that maybe aren't as strong as we wish they were. So you might see somebody sitting in front of a library, which has hundreds of colorful books all over it, trying to emphasize how well read they are. But that can be a really distracting background. What you're trying to do is find a happy medium. You don't want a cluttered, busy background with lots of different, interesting, weird, unique little things behind you with lots of different colors, because those people listening to you or trying to listen to you are going to be darting all over your background the whole time, trying to make sense of it all. And if they can't figure something out, they're going to be really distracted by, what is that sculpture? I don't understand that. Or if they see something they recognize and they really love, they're just going to be thinking about that. I want to be talking to you about that item later. So you want a simpler background. Now, at the other end of the spectrum, you don't want just a white, dry wall behind you, because those people in the meeting with you are going to wonder if you're okay and if you've been captured and you need help. Too stark of a background sends a really dry message, and at times a concerning, uncomfortable message because it's so plain. So a few items here and there sprinkled around. Larger items are less distracting. So, but a long view of your home, if you have sort of a studio, is a really distracting filled space that's like an I Spy and can be really distracting. People kind of have the tendency to maybe try and blur the background. Those are settings on some of the software, or to use a virtual background. And while those are a lot of fun on social calls, it's not so good professionally. The algorithm and the software that's in there that's tracking the movement around that is not quite great. So there's always sort of a blurred, fuzzy line around the profile of the person, and that's really distracting, kind of weird, especially if they lean back, they disappear into the background. So for now, until that technology improves, I would advise not using the blur in the virtual backgrounds on professional calls. We are all itching to get outside and get some fresh air, but I've got to tell you, I've made this mistake myself and I've learned from it. Don't do your calls outside. Outside is an incredibly distracting space. For those who are watching you on your video call, if you're moving around with your smartphone while you're on a virtual call, it is a crazy, blurry, shaky background, and it can be really distracting, or for those who have motion sickness, it actually makes them nauseous. So you don't want to be outside. Also, there are so many elements outside that you can't control. Noises, sirens going by, cars going by, dogs barking. There can just be a lot of audio that causes your video feed become the dominant one in the meeting when it's just a dog barking or a bird chirping. And lastly, if you're outside, there's a lot for you to look at. That's very relaxing and fun for your brain to get outside. But on the camera, what all your colleagues see are your eyes looking around and darting and watching stuff, which shows that you're really not engaged in the topic. And a lot of this now is about body language and expressiveness while you're on camera to communicate what you want in the meeting, a lot of those nonverbal cues. So just go outside for a break after the meeting, but not during it. So we've talked about hardware, setting, and now let's get into video. Let's actually talk about the camera that's pointed on you. It's really important to try and have it straight on as best as you can, given your environment. I've tried to frame myself up as best I could, maybe 6 inches to a foot on either side. Any closer and it gets a little intimate and too much. And if you're too far away, your audio can be a bit odd and more bouncy around. What goes hand in hand with framing your space up is also the orientation of your camera and how it's angled at your face. You might be used to sitting straight on at your laptop and that's where you sit, but your camera might not be located there. And for the meeting, unless you're taking notes, you need to be sitting in a conversationally comfortable location as it compares to your camera. I've been on so many calls where someone is too high and you're catching their chin because they're sitting too high or their laptop is, or they're too low and you're just catching their forehead, or they've got a really high up monitor with a camera mounted on top and you're looking down. It's just really distracting and really unprofessional. So you're trying to get it straight on and not at an angle, not too far in one direction. Try and getting as close to nicely centered in this sort of space as possible. Something that's really hard to get used to but really important is to talk to your camera. Ever since we were infants and we became aware of mirrors and seeing ourselves in a mirror, you always tend to stop and look at yourself in a reflective service just to check out real fast how the dew's going, fix your collar, things like that. And it's just sort of interesting and weird to watch yourself talk on camera. But you can see as I'm looking at myself now on the screen, I'm no longer having a face-to-face conversation. I'm watching myself while I make a point, which is odd in a virtual professional space. You need to look into your camera because then your eyes will be looking in the eyes of the people that you're talking to. We're doing our best to simulate what an in-person real meeting is like. So when it's your turn to talk into the camera. Another tip for video that I see a lot is people are checking their phone while they're on video conferencing. And you might think you're slick, and maybe in some big meetings, physically you've been able to get away with it, but when you have a camera pointed straight on your face, here's what it looks like to everybody else. You're down below the camera, looking, oh, you check back up, you're looking. Or if you're trying to have it to the side, we can see that your face is turned away, and your eyes are off the screen where we're all talking. Put your phone away. You're here for a meeting. We're going to talk now. Check your email and your stuff afterwards, just like you were in a physical meeting. You can't get back to that technology until you're done. Be physically present for the meeting as well. My last little video tip is that most of these software platforms give you the option to see a video preview of yourself before you enter a conference call. Take that opportunity to check everything that I've been talking about, how you're framed, how the camera's oriented to your face, what your background looks like before you turn your camera on. There's also a setting in a lot of these platforms where it says to enter a meeting with your camera off, which I suggest is a great way. Although you'll probably turn your camera on right away if it's definitely a video call. It gives you that half second when you enter a meeting. If you haven't set everything up nicely and you're ready to rock and roll for your call, to fix all that real fast, but still be heard in talking and introducing yourself to the meeting before it gets underway. So the next thing I want to talk about is lighting. You do not need a big professional Hollywood lighting kit at home to be able to ready to video conference, but there are just a few small tips that can make you a lot more presentable and a lot more fun to work with virtually. First major tip is just the positioning of where your light source is compared to your face. The biggest mistake I keep seeing all the time is someone sitting in front of a window. A window is a huge light source and it turns you into a silhouette, like you're offering some creepy ransom message. Do not sit in front of a window and do not have a light on behind you. Where you want the light source from is behind your computer or your tablet or your device that's lighting your face. Natural light is best. It really softens it. So if you can sit in front of a window, like I'm sitting in front of an east-facing window right now, keeps it generally soft. It's easy on the eyes of the people who are watching you through the camera. You want to consider your proximity to that light source though. I don't want a lamp right behind my computer because I'm going to blow up real bright and probably yellow or orange based on the lampshade. So you want to be back from the light but have a light source on. Once you've got the directional light on the front of your face lighting up real nicely and evenly, you might need to think about, depending on how harsh that light source is, a fill light. Now a fill light generally is a light that's put above and out of frame that helps soften any shadows that are in the back. Think of doing a shadow puppet. You're making a shadow puppet of yourself. If you have a close wall behind you and a bright light source in front of you, there might be a shadow of you on the wall that's very distracting for your coworkers as you talk on camera and Peter Pan's shadow is dancing all over the wall. So a fill light, which might just be an overhead light in your dining room or your office, helps soften those shadows if you're that close to a wall behind you when lighting yourself in the front. Okay, so let's get into audio, hearing each other and talking to one another. The number one thing off the bat I want to suggest is to default by using headphones from your source, whatever you're using, into your own ears. Now we're all using the same software platforms to talk, but we all have different hardware we're using it on. Tablets, smartphones, desktops, laptops, all the different ages and brands. And they all come with different types of microphones and speakers that are coming in. And almost on every single call that I have, someone is talking into a microphone, that audio comes out of someone else's computer, bounces around in their room, and their own microphone picks that audio back up inside, and there's an echo that everybody hears of that voice. If you pop in your headphones and put them into your device, that helps stop potentially from you any bounce coming through your audio and then coming back into your microphone and everybody hearing themselves through your computers. Number two, talk at a normal conversation level as if someone was across the table from you at a normal meeting. Most device microphones are really, really good. They can pick you up. You do not need to be shouting at your computer to pick you up, but also don't be whispering because it's just kind of creepy and unprofessional. And also think about it like if you were talking to somebody outside on a windy day. If you ever turn your head away or all the way around and are talking, if you're outside and it's on a windy day, your audio is lost and that person's not going to hear what you said. You need to talk to them face to face. So if you're talking, talk at your computer. Don't talk to the right or to the left or behind you because they might not hear what you're saying. Silence everything in your house. You need to show your team that you are here with them, focused, listening to what they have to say, and you're going to work the problem together. So silence your phone if you're not using your phone for this call. No alarm clocks in the kitchen. Turn off notification beeps and boops and sounds on your computer if you're clicking around and the various Windows or Apple sounds come up. Silence those for the call. Those are all distractions that can make your feed dominant on the conversation, and then everybody just hears your bing or your bong or whatever, and it's really distracting. With that, you might even need to put a sign on the front door of your house that says, don't ring the doorbell or don't knock. Just because it's a sound in the background, that'll dominate the feed, but it also might make your pet go nuts and start barking or chirping, which is really distracting in the background too. Find out where the microphone is on your computer and don't touch it while you're on the call. I've been on several calls where I'll be talking with somebody and they'll lay their hand just casually on the computer somewhere And it turns out that's where the microphone was. And then we can't hear them anymore. So learn where your mic is and make sure it's unobstructed for your call. All right, so the next section, let's talk about etiquette during a meeting. How you behave in a virtual meeting is now a critical component of defining your professional brand, as your colleagues and people outside of your company whom you're working with are defining you just by your phone calls, your video conferencing, and your emails, because that's the way we can communicate right now. Just like with any professional meeting, send an agenda out and a meeting invite far enough ahead of time that's respectful and that's clear what's going to be covered in the meeting. Some of these software platforms actually have meeting creation tools inside of them. That's great. But otherwise, use whatever you're used to using in your office, whether that's a Google Calendar, Outlook, whatever you're rocking and rolling on. Back in that section about getting to know how your platform works, understand passwords and access in lobbies. There's a lot of software where you can send out a password for meeting attendees, a PIN code they need to enter, which user number they are, and in some settings, you actually get stuck in a lobby as a participant until the meeting leader lets you in. And I've been on several calls where a meeting leader has done that and been in the meeting for 20 to 30 minutes and then seen, oh my God, I have 12 people waiting in the lobby who've missed the first half an hour of the meeting. I just thought they were late or skipping the meeting. So learn how those password settings work, check which boxes you have to toggle, how that all works when you're setting up the meeting. So there's no confusion and people are on time and they can access the meeting when it's time. That's another part. Just be on time for the meeting. It's just like in the professional workplace. Be on time. Certainly work runs over. You have meetings that cross into meetings and a call might go long, so you're late to the next meeting. But if you're watching this video, then you might be stuck at home right now to work. We don't have really that many excuses to be late for meetings other than the first meeting running into the second one. So be on time. I see a lot of etiquette confusion when people are coming into meetings and wondering, should my mic be muted? Should my camera be off? And what I say is when you enter a meeting, just default to mic muted and camera off. Some of the software allows you to enter a meeting like that, and I say it's great. It just gives you an extra 2 seconds to gauge how the leader of the meeting is operated. And I would say follow their lead. If their camera's on, your camera should be on. If they're unmuted, you should be muted. And a good video conferencing meeting leader will set those expectations up at the top of the meeting, whether they want your video on, whether they want you muted if you're not talking. And it's important that you kind of go with the vibe of most of everyone else on the call. If everyone's on video and unmuted, and you have your video off, people are going to assume that maybe you're in a robe or your hair's nuts or something crazy in your environment, and that's unprofessional. You should be ready to participate like the majority of your meeting is. You might get stuck in the middle of a video meeting really having to go to the bathroom, or you just really need a drink of water, and that's okay. Remember back to the physical days of meetings where we were in a conference room and people left to go to the bathroom or to grab a cup of refill their coffee at the appropriate times. Gauge the appropriate time in your meeting as well, and go ahead and turn your camera off. You can mute yourself as well. It just helps maybe in the chat window to say like, hey, run to the bathroom real fast, I'll be right back. Just so people know that you didn't drop out and now they're trying to get you back into the call. Give them a heads up in the chat, go do what you need to do and be right back, just like you were in a physical office. But once you get back, there's no need to unmute yourself and say, I have returned from the bathroom. Once you unmute yourself and you turn the camera on, we all know. Just stay quiet, don't make it weird. Eating and drinking during a video conferencing call can be a really, really big distraction. I think we've all been in lots of meetings where people had coffee or they had refreshments, and that's kind of normal. So it's okay to sip, just not to go too overboard or have a really distracting and crazy, bright, colorful vessel from which you're drinking. Eating is kind of odd. I think it's okay for the occasional little tiny snack. But remember, there's a camera focused on your face nonstop. People are watching you. Even when you go out to a nice dinner with your partner or your family, you're not staring at each other's faces the entire time you eat. And watching somebody eat can be really awkward and uncomfortable, watching someone chew and swallow and put something in their mouth. So try not to snack during video conferencing calls. We've seen lots of fun compilations right now of people bringing their pets into frame, cats walking across keyboards, kids coming in out of the corner. Those are really cute. But I think it goes unspoken that it's really unprofessional to have your pets in on a video conferencing call inside your organization or outside of it, or having your kids come in. It can be a stress reliever for a lot of us right now. It can be fun to see each other's pets, and those are great for social calls. But I'd also put a little asterisk here, kind of like I did at the top of this video, where it depends on your company culture. If people are really casual and they're having their pets coming in and out, and you're not the leader of the call, or heck, even there's a video conference set up for some of you and your colleagues just for more casual happy hour, and people say, bring your pets, bring your kids. That's your choice, and that's fun. But don't take the initiative when it hasn't happened on a professional video call to pick up your cat, pick up your dog into the video frame, encourage them to come over. Try before the video call, if you have a wandering pet, to barricade them out of the way if they have the chance to walk in front of your camera. It's just really distracting and it's unprofessional. So if it's not a webinar and it's a two-way conversation, there are a lot of really important things that happen in that. One of them is body language. We are watching body language from each other to make sure that we're paying attention and we agree, or maybe we're not so sure about that and we're not really on to that idea, or we have a question and we want to participate. That could be raising a finger, raising a hand. There are actually some tools, some buttons you can click sometimes that virtually raise a hand next to your name or your icon in the chat window so people know that you have a question or something that you'd like to contribute. But body language is going to be really important. Something I saw in a webinar that I really, really liked too is if it's going to be a conversation, especially if there's senior leadership talking to a team, leading up to getting someone ready for a question is a really special skill that I saw in this one webinar that I really liked. And the presenter was going to do Q&A sometimes, or just get people participating and involved in the webinar. And they did audio signals that let you know the question was coming. No matter how engaging you are, no matter how wonderful and important your content is, people who are on your webinar or your video chat are going to phase out. They're going to, for a second, not pay attention. They're going to be thinking about something else. And they might not be there 100% of the time. So these audio cues can help get someone ready. What this person did is he said, as an example, I'm pulling this out of thin air. So now that we've been talking about clouds for a little while, I'd like to pose to the group what sort of cloud form we think is most common coming over the Midwest at this time. So in a second, I'm going to call on someone here to answer about clouds in their region. Let's go ahead and go with, so that wasted a lot of time. You'd feel like it wasted a lot of time, but it signals to all the participants, hey, tune in. I could get called on just like I was in school at the moment. I better be ready with an answer. Pay attention. I'm unmuted. I'm ready to go with something to say and contribute. I like that kind of audio signaling. It's really cool. And I think the last part of with etiquette is once a call is over, don't be afraid to ask your colleagues for feedback. You can ask them via email or on a casual video chat. Just, hey, I'm doing a lot of these every day now. This is happening all the time. What'd you think? Could you hear me okay? What did my background look like? Did I look like I was engaged? It's really important for this 360 feedback right now to make sure you're putting your best professional foot forward in this new video conferencing world. All right, so the last section I have is saying goodbye. When the meeting is over, how many times have we saying, all right, everybody, have a good one. And then everyone stops talking and they look here and they try and find out where the button is for end meeting. And we click around and then they go. It's such an awkward, strange way to sign off from a meeting. It's like if in a physical meeting you all said goodbye and then you all walked a couple laps around the room because you couldn't find the door. So as your meeting is wrapping up, take a second to cheat and look around the window of the software you're using and familiarize yourself with where leave meeting or leave chat or end meeting, where that button is at, and have your mouse ready on that so that your departure can feel a little more authentic. Again, in this new virtual space, what you're saying is just as important as your body language and your facial expressions that are going on. So your goodbye should be done both with what you say and how you behave and what your face looks like. So just saying goodbye, kind of cold, kind of soft. So try and put a hand in there, wave to everybody, what also feels professional and decorum for your sort of office culture in your virtual office culture. So for me, that might be, thanks everybody, appreciate what you had to contribute today, and we'll talk tomorrow morning. Last but not least, make sure you've signed out. We've seen some videos where video chats have ended professionally and the video didn't stop from somebody. It's hard to tell if these are staged or if they're real, but then people walk around their home, walk away, they're not fully dressed, they're yelling at somebody else in their house. Once you've signed off, double check that the software has closed and it's shut down and your video call is completely over before going about the rest of your workday. Well, thanks everybody for sticking around this long. I hope there was at least something new at some point in this video that you're willing to try out in your professional video conferencing setting and your new work from home life. I've turned the YouTube comments off because literally nothing has ever come out of YouTube comments that were good. But if you actually know me personally and you're seeing some of these new etiquettes or behaviors evolve, or you have some other ideas for things that I missed, maybe I'll do an update to this video. So send it my way and I'll see if I can incorporate it. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you online.